Yes, I work at the United States Olympic Committee. I'm the director of coaching education. Before this, I worked at U.S. Lacrosse in Baltimore, Maryland in their coaching department and ran that, as well as assisted their national team there. I've been a lacrosse coach for coming up on my 14th year. Spent 3 years coaching NCAA lacrosse, 2 years women's, 1 year men's. When people ask me in Colorado Springs, what do you do for a living? And I'm with my wife, she gets really mad because I always start with, I'm a lacrosse coach. And then I say, and I happen to work at the Olympic Committee and work in the coaching department. Oh, what do you do in the coaching department? Well, exactly what John said. I literally do 60 hours a week of looking across all 47 national teams, all of their coaching staffs, all of the sports. I try to take all the research from those book nerds that literally sit in their nerdatoriums and read things and then say that we should do this as coaches. Well, I take that information and try to apply it, because I'm a coach. So the first thing I want to do as a coach is say, that's great science that is not going to work with an 18-year-old stud who I just recruited, who thinks that he's the best in the world, and I'm going to sit here and try to do kumbaya with him. It's just not going to work. So then I'll sit and I'll rattle my brains and I'll talk to other coaches and say, how would you do this with this kid? Because a couple of us mentioned it yesterday about, I had this one awesome kid who just got away. All right, he was just so good. I'm so pissed he got away. He shouldn't have. It's like, how do we not let that kid get away? How do we get through to them? And I try to answer that question and share it with other people. So I am the king of stealing and sharing with others, okay? And just so you know how that goes is you steal, you rename it, it works, you buy them a beer at some point down the road and say thank you, okay? So that's why I think what I have to say is really relevant. Last night, if you were here for Adam Krikorian's talk, basically, Adam did what the best thing I've ever seen any keynote presenter do. One, he was in jeans, sat right here on the freaking table, and literally went for an hour and a half, and it literally could have gone all night. Because it was just literally us as coaches just talking, throwing out ideas. But what Adam got to was the heart of really what coaching is. He wasn't talking about the X's and O's. He was talking about actually inspiring others, how to be a leader, and what didn't work, where he had to get back to the basics or his core values to really be able to get back to where he as a coach was loving coaching, and also getting his athletes back to a point where they could be so freaking pumped up that they're willing to run through a wall to beat any other team in front of them, okay, and achieve their absolute maximum. That's what we do as coaches. We try to maximize the potential of our athletes, our team, and our legacy. Okay? That is our job. So what he talked about last night, I've got some science behind what people are doing now, and what we're trying to get other national teams and their pathways to do now, because these kids are different. They really are. Psychologically, they are different. We have new research that's proving how they learn is different, and how we as coaches need to adjust to maximize those things. So I do talk like this all the time, so if I got you a little pumped up, don't worry, I should be able to keep it the whole time, all right? But this is me. Tires my wife out and gets her annoyed half the time, so. All right. At the United States Olympic Committee, when we do high performance planning, when we literally say, how are we going to kick the crap out of China, New Zealand, and other places, we look at 5 key areas. We look at our athletes, we look at our coaches, we look at how they train, we look at the competitions they're going to, and we look at leaderships. When John does his job and lays out a high performance plan of how we're going to fund and get the national team all around and how we're going to win medals, he looks at these core areas, and we ask him questions on these core areas. You can do this as a U10 coach, you can do this as a high school coach, a college coach. If you start looking at these 5 key areas, you can start to identify gaps. Okay, areas where you're not so good and it's not building a legacy of sustainable success, right? My job is to look at this coaching pillar and to figure out, how do we kick butt? What's the important things? What's missing in the world? Okay? We do a lot of programming at the Olympic Committee, and what I want to show you is all the programming we do coach recognition stuff, we do stuff on athlete development, which is all small-sided games. How do you keep kids involved but actually win more medals based on using development tactics, appropriate dose and duration. A lot of stuff Gabriel was throwing out there is like totally in line with all of the modern research on how you actually win more medals while keeping kids engaged, okay, and getting them better skills along the path. But we do programming with our national team coaches, teaching them about leadership, how to be better. Everything that we really do is based around 4 key concepts, 4 key values that we think are super important in coaching: engagement, development, quality, and evaluation. Those are the 4 areas as a coach educator I look at to say, where can we fill gaps, where can we kick ass? The number 1 value is quality coaching, okay? And that's the one I'm going to talk about today, of how do you all as coaches, no matter what level you're at, get better quality out of yourselves, out of your athletes, and out of your support staffs. Based off some science that we've pulled up and some information that we think can really help us apply the research. Development, super important. You're doing that today. You're here developing yourselves, and the challenge is how do we set up development plans every single year that's going to make you better. Engagement, how do we make you actually love coming to work every day? You'll notice, based off your development and the quality of coaching you're getting, your engagement will suffer or get better, as Adam Krikorian talked about last night. It's like, I'm starting to hate it a little bit, you know? So your engagement, how you're engaged, your rewards, how you're recognizing yourself, your coaches, your athletes is in there. And evaluation, that's a huge one. John's right. I could spend 2 days with you. I've actually have spent a full day doing full day workshops just on these 4 things, okay? But the one that I want to crunch through today is around quality coaching, all right, and some science. So this is my goal for today. I'm going to lay out our view at the Olympic Committee of quality coaching. And it's so darn brand new, it literally is 4 weeks old of how we laid this out based off our US bobsled team and luge teams we're working with right now. So it's very current, but I think it's very relevant. 2, I'm going to give you 2 key areas that I think everybody in this room, no matter what level, college, all the way down to U8s, U10s, could take some good information, some research, and apply it to how you coach and get better results from your athletes. So 2 key things. And then I'm hoping everything I'm saying is challenging you just to try to be the best coach you could be. Because like I said earlier, your job is to maximize potential of yourself, your athletes, and of your legacy. If every single person in this room is doing that, water polo is going to continue to get better and better and better, and we won't ever have to worry about losing to someone we shouldn't, okay? So that'll be an awesome outcome if we can do it. This is the definition of quality coaching we designed 4 weeks ago because of our work with US Bobsled. We asked our bobsled coaches, and I'll read it to you in a second. Here's the story. We're up in Lake Placid, New York. Bobsled won 6 sliding medals as a whole, bobsled, luge, and skeleton at the Sochi Olympics, okay? Most we've ever done, we kicked butt. It was the best results ever. We asked those coaches afterwards, how do you know you're great? It's like, because we won 6 medals. I was like, well, what if you only won 4? And it was the most time, the best coaching you ever did. Are you still as valuable as 6? They're like, yeah, we still won medals. I was like, okay, if you won no medals, but you did the best coaching job you ever did, are you still a good coach? They're like, well, yeah. I was like, so why are you only measuring yourself on medal count? Like, why aren't you looking at those details? And they just threw it back in my face. Well, what should we be looking at? I was like, fuck. All right, this is what you should be looking at. We took all the science, we laid it out into something that we could use from top to bottom, and it was legitimately this. Quality coaching is consistently applying the integrated professional, interpersonal, and intrapersonal knowledge, okay? I'm going to tell you what those things really mean. It's to improve your athletes, these 4 things: character, connection, confidence, and competence. And by doing that, you got to have leadership that is going to put a performance culture and a great environment of success around it. This horribly ugly thing that we built in PowerPoint and haven't given to a graphic designer yet kind of shows that. The coach, this pillar of coaching I have to work on, is in the middle. Your job as a coach is the professional knowledge, which are the X's and O's. That's the wins and losses. That's the physical, technical, tactical, and then the mental side. We all do awesome and get into these conversations on. And I stole like 4 things from you. My game of lacrosse, dude, those 5-on-4s, dude, that's our man up. You know, it's the same darn thing. So I'm stealing professional stuff every day. Where we get challenged is in the interpersonal and intrapersonal side things of coaching. Actually looking at our core values and how we do things and how it leaves a legacy. By how we do that, it impacts your athletes' confidence, their competence in the game, their character, and how they connect. And one of Adam's core values from yesterday for the national team coaches, okay, was connection. And he said he just wasn't connecting, and he needs to connect with his athletes in order to feel like he's doing a good job. Well, guess what, man? If they don't connect with you, they go get full-time jobs, and they stop playing water polo, okay? They need that just as well. So when you build yourself and connect, they connect back. The thing that wraps all this is really culture, okay? It's your environment, and it's how you lead them towards performance on a daily basis, okay? So let me dive a little bit inside of this, and you'll find parts of, what's cool about how I want to do this presentation is, you're going to go and say, I do that, I'm awesome. You say, I don't do so much of that, or I disagree with that. That's cool. You're going to find every part of those gamuts, pull one or two things from this that you could implement or get a little bit better at. Because if you do that, you're going to become a better coach every time. All right, so like I said, the professional side of it as a coach. Here's the 3 areas we see everybody doing. We all get the professional side. It's the technical, the tactical, the physical, and the mental side of things as a coach, okay? That's what we all normally spend a lot of our time on. That's why we love the sport, okay? It's these next two. The interpersonal knowledge. This is literally your relationships, managing those relationships. It's how you communicate. You're trying to figure out, you're trying to build trust. You're trying to build you understand their personality styles. You're trying to be adaptable to the different athletes. Somebody needs it tough, but somebody needs me to lay off a little bit. You're trying to figure that out as a coach, and you're trying to communicate clear so that they understand what you're trying to accomplish, and they can adjust within that role. So based on your relationships, you'll be able to build better interpersonal knowledge. The research that we have on the modern day athlete, okay, these are the athletes who are between the ages of 12 and 18 that we've pulled over the last 3 years, is showing us that they legitimately need these relationships because how many of us grew up, we were taught resilience. Our parents didn't accept bullshit half the time. Nowadays, there's always a reason why they were wronged or a reason why, because the definition of the home is not as consistent as it was 30, 40 years ago. Okay? The schooling systems and the discipline systems in that schooling are not the same as they were 20 years ago. My nun used to smack me upside the head, and she used to beat my dad. You can't even do that or think that nowadays. There's a different way that resilience is taught. It's now being expected to be taught through us as coaches, and that's how our struggle falls in. Okay? So these relationships to clearly communicate and do these things are very key with the generations moving forward and every one of our success. Dude, hit it. Yeah, totally.
I think you're touching on a subject I'm seeing in 16 years, and that's huge right now. And what happens with our kids at the club level, what happens that I've seen, we get undermined by that drive home. If their kid didn't play enough or whatever it is. So yeah, I get what you're right. We are their mentor while we have them. But as soon as they take that, if they didn't play enough in their parents' eyes, that drive home is the worst drive home for me and that kid's relationship.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm seeing a lot of tension coming from those parents to that kid, and then that kid. What's the kid supposed to do? What's the athlete supposed to do? What side does he take? How can he take my side if he's living? You know what I mean? So absolutely.
So it's a great example because the funniest thing, I always ask parents, what's the first thing you ask your kid after he gets in the car? You weren't at the game, but you pick him up. What's the first thing you ask? Did you win? It's like, yeah. How'd you play? Okay. Well, why are you upset? Oh, I'm just tired. That's the conversation between mom and the son, mom and the daughter nowadays, okay, while they're texting on their phones. There's not that actual line of communication of asking those questions. So they automatically assume we screwed up as a coach. Why is my daughter or my son upset versus actually asking them? It's a different dynamic, man. My mom used to ask me details, all right? My kids nowadays don't talk in details unless it's through text or Twitter. And that's very short as it is. So you're absolutely right. The interpersonal. So here's the deal. The intrapersonal, okay? This will help that comment that you just made because it's going to get your athletes on the same page with you. If they like you, they will be on the same page with you nowadays. You can push them. You can be very hard, okay? There are ways to do that. You can be a complete jerk to them. There are complete ways to do that. But what it's coming down to, we're finding the research is they've got to understand who you are, what your core values are. Okay? They want to understand your philosophy, your beliefs. Kids want to understand you. They want to connect to you, and if they do that, they'll run through a wall from you. And you can challenge them, you can yell at them, you can drop F-bombs, it doesn't matter. They'll be on your page, but if they don't understand who you are, and you don't understand who you are, and you're not consistent, you're not going to be able to get through to the new generation just based on how they learn and how they have access to information. The moment you tell them you played in college, within 2 seconds on that cell phone, they can tell you your statistics. God, that sucks. Especially if you weren't that good. I wrestled in college for a year. Coach, I see that you wrestled, you got your ass kicked for 2 bouts, did okay in this one, and then you got hurt, and you had a concussion. Thanks, man. Yeah, you know it. I can't lie to you and tell you I was awesome. Absolutely. It's a different generation. These key areas in coaching are going to help you. All right, so let me keep going with how we define this for bobsled, how I think it reflects to you. Again, here's that really ugly thing, but you see, that's at the center of this. You knowing you, knowing how to relate to your athletes, and then going ahead doing the X's and O's really well. All right? The next part for the athletes, okay, character. We're being expected to start building character, setting qualities, and trying to enhance their experience. Positive Coaching Alliance has the saying that winning's important, but life lessons are more important. I've been ingrained in PCA for a very long time. US Lacrosse is a formal partnership with them. I had them the whole time. Many coaches tell me, it just sounds kind of cheesy. I was like, cool, how about this? Winning's important. Sports are way more important. Through sports, you learn life lessons, okay? You build character, and if I'm building character, you want to be a part of that coach's practice every day. You'll come to practice if character is being built. You're getting something that, in today's world, you can be pulled in a gazillion different directions. So athletes want character built, all right? As coaches, you want character to be built in your athletes. Confidence. All of our athletes need confidence in what they do, and we want to build confidence in them. Connection. You want to have that bond, that social relationship with your teammates, as well as your coach, as well as with the program. Purpose is a huge thing nowadays. Any leadership book you read will start with, it's about purpose. Every business book you read is about purpose. Everybody wants to be tied to a purpose bigger than themselves. If you can do that in your programs, with your teams, give those kids a sense of purpose and belonging, you can be as hard as you want and challenge them in any way you want to do it. And they'll respond in the way that you want because they're there for another reason, okay? So building purpose and connection is huge. And last thing is competence. We want to put water polo players out there that can actually go ahead and perform the game. They want to have competence in the game itself. They want to have confidence when they go out onto the field. So it comes from competence. So that's what the athletes get when you start with that core center. You know yourself, you can communicate, and you start to build those things on the outside with it. And then last thing, this is the leadership thing. My first book drop, okay? It's the book called Legacy. It's about the New Zealand All Blacks rugby team who has won over 80% of their games across their entire history, okay? The winningest sports team in the world ever is the New Zealand All Blacks in rugby. The whole book is their leadership concepts and their values that have equaled winning, and they've had to reinvent themselves numerous times. Super awesome book, okay? Just, you gotta read it.
What's it called?
Legacy, about the New Zealand All Blacks. Environment. Provide resources to be in an environment where you can basically kick butt and take names, okay? That's the job of leadership. If you do that, it encompasses the athletes and the coach. Performance culture. It's providing purpose, leadership. This word, accountability, to your direction, the vision, the actions, the inspiration. Okay? That's leadership. That's what the New Zealand All Blacks do better than everybody. And you can steal tons of stuff from that book. It's 15 chapters, 15 key things of how it can influence culture and business and life. All right, they build that better than anybody. Then the athletes and the coaches take care of the rest. But if you don't have an environment that's got resources to be successful, and it doesn't have accountability and direction, you're not going to be great, okay? So again, there's our complete circle of what modern day quality coaching is to us. So that's the big tier when I line them all up. The athletes are in the middle because this is the modern day research we're finding. Based off how kids react and they learn now, and the more information we have on learning, is the athletes are the center of this whole world. It's the concept of being player-centric as a coach. And as I go through the rest of my talk, I'm not going to try to sell you that you need to be everybody gets a hug and a high five and an ice cream sandwich. Dude, the world doesn't work that way, man. The moment you tell them that, they're going to call BS on you and stop coming to your practices. They're not dumb. They got Google. They'll tell you the answer, right? But the key is how things have changed in our society. If you put the athlete at the center of your training, you can train them harder. Because if you've got those other key things, if you as a coach, as well as the leadership around your program, they'll want to be involved with it, all right? And that's the concept of player-centric. We asked our athletes, we asked our Olympians, we sent out a survey about 3 years ago to as many email addresses we could possibly get for our athletes from the 84 games all the way up through the 2012 games, okay? And we asked them, what's important to you? Why do you play sports, okay? And then we cut down the sample just to take the athletes from basically, I think it was 2000 up through 2012 that responded. And this is what they said. They love sport. They love it. They love activity. That's why they play, okay? Recruitment, things like that are down at the bottom, but they play because they love it. Then we asked them, what do you want in a coach? And this is what they told us. Training knowledge, teachability. After that, strategic information of the sport. What we asked, we looked at all the different areas, and what we saw was, as you went from age group to age group, like I said, this was the group that was 98 through 2012. When we broke it down from 98 down past, around 84 and below, we saw these numbers at the top, training knowledge and teachability, come up.
So what's teachability, teaching ability?
Your ability to actually teach the game, teach them as a human being, and then be able to send them on to better things. That's what they want. It goes back to that kind of circle I showed. They want a coach who not only knows the sport, but actually can teach to their learning style or teach to the style they prefer that makes a bigger purpose. Teachability, you're a better educator. This is teachability. This is the old school way of coaching, man. John Wooden, who it's funny, I didn't really hit me till I landed. I was like, oh shit, we're gonna be at UCLA. I hope we get to be near where Coach Wooden's stuff is. I heard about it. Now I was here, it's like, oh my God, half my speech is about why John Wooden's concepts are the most relevant thing in the world right now, okay? You don't really have to reinvent, you can steal ideas from him every day in all these books. But this is it. This is a new way of looking at old school coaching, the teachability, because both Wooden, Lombardi, and many other coaches consider themselves teachers first, coaches second. So you look at these kind of quotes, if you don't have time to do it right, when are you gonna have time to do it over, okay? Ask that to one of your athletes and it'll ring, oh crap, you're right, I probably should just do it right, so I don't have to do it over, okay? You look at, this is my most favorite quote in the world. The only place success comes before work is in the dictionary, okay? Great ones there. Oh, and you guys will have all my slides. I give everything away, so you can steal these and use them in a practice. They're great to put on walls, okay? But this is old school coaching. These were guys, and some of the other female coaches from the past were amazing at being teachers and building those connections first, okay? Wooden said, profound responsibility comes with teaching and coaching. You do so much good or so much harm. That's why I believe that next to parenting, teaching and coaching are the two most important professions in the world. Dude, he's right. I asked one of our former national team head coaches for the women's lacrosse team for U.S. Lacrosse. I said, how do you know you're a good coach? She goes, by how many weddings I get invited to. I was like, what? He goes, yeah, by how many weddings I get invited to. She goes, she coached the national team for 16 years. I had years, I got invited to 10, 15 weddings. And then I had years where I was invited to 2. It was kind of like what Adam was talking about. It's like, shit, I got my athletes come up to me saying, I don't like who you've become. She's like, now? She stopped coaching national teams. She's coaching high school and stuff like that. She's like, every one of my kids invites me to their graduation party. Every one of my kids invites me here, and we're still kicking butt and taking names. It was just that recognition of I'm a coach, I'm a teacher, here's how I value, and that's what we're starting to see. It's an important role. So player-centric coaching is the key. How do you put the athlete at the center to get better results? Again, putting him in the best situation to succeed. And this is the middle of Wooden's success, his pyramid of success that ironically is in the most awesome display in the world right over there. You'll see it. This is what we want as coaches. We want to build our athletes' skills to build confidence, which creates poise. Poise is being able to perform under pressure. That's at the core of his whole pyramid of success of how he coached. So it's not everybody gets a hug and a high five. It's not kumbaya. It's getting us what we want while having relationships with them that they want, while building a legacy that everybody wants to be a part of. Okay, it's at the middle of that pyramid. That's player-centric coaching. You'll win more with it, and Wooden was a proof of it. All right, so let me give you some science and some stuff of how you could dive a little bit deeper into these areas as coaches, maybe apply a couple things coming out of here as you go forth. Okay, where all this information comes in the next little bit is this. So we have a national team coaching leadership program that our national team head coaches can apply to be a part of. And over 2 years, we put them through training with some of the best in the world on how to be better leaders. We literally flew in Joe Gibbs Racing, their pit crew chief, to work with 24 of our head coaches to literally talk about performance under pressure. Because if Joe Gibbs Racing, when they change tires, the difference of 1 second is $5 million in either prize money or sponsorship money at every single race. The difference of going from Fifth, because 1 second will take you normally from like fifth place down to 15th at times over the course of your tire changes. $5 million a race in prize money. That's riding on the guys who aren't even driving the car. Like, those are the dudes changing the tires. That's pressure, man. We bring those people in and talk to our coaches about those and relate it back to how they work with their athletes to be able to connect better. Think about our athletes. Anybody who's ever been around a national team program, you get cut, you stop getting paid. As well as you're getting paid to be out there, you're not performing, man, you're cut, you're gone. A young stud comes up, that's a lot of pressure that a 16-year-old can come up and take your spot. No different than if anybody's ever coached college and you get a stud freshman coming in and all of a sudden everybody hates her. You don't know why, and it's because she's so damn good. There's a lot of pressure on these kids. You got to figure out how to manage that. So we do stuff with our national team coaches over 2 years that brings some of the best in. Wooden's book, another book drop, okay? You haven't taught until they learned. That really can be the core. It's a quick read, gives you a lot of ideas of how you could apply some of this culture, a lot of the science, directly tomorrow. It was written by one of his athletes, Snyder, and just tells you directly some of the things Wooden did, and they apply now today. This last one's an interesting one that you only get from a nerd like me. The brain-targeted teaching model. We worked with a bunch of researchers at Johns Hopkins University around the neuroscience of learning, the modern-day culture of the athletes and students out there. And we said, how do these kids learn these days? And actually, we wrote a book on it, but it's for school. I was like, we're teachers. We just happen to do it outside on a field or in a pool, not in a classroom. So this book really inspired a lot of this. So if you want to read it, it's worth it. It gives you a lot of examples. It's a quick read. I'm a big simpleton, so quick reads are a big sell for me, all right? But if not, you're going to hit 2 key things right here that I think can help us. So that's where all this info comes from. All right, so we're going to talk about education, learning, because I think that could be a key thing at getting the results you want. And my friends, the Peanuts, are going to help us just lay this out. And every coach in here can relate to this, okay? Hey, Charlie Brown, guess what? I taught Woodstock how to whistle. That's funny. Woodstock can't whistle. No, stupid. I said I taught him. I didn't say he learned it. Think about how many times you just went over that drill. You went over that man up, and then you go right to apply. It's like, we just learned this. How do you not get this? We taught you a million times. And in reality, I said I taught him. I didn't say he learned it. Dude, that's the key. That's the connection we want to try to make nowadays. If you can connect with your athletes better, they know who you are and you have better core values that you lead to, then the professional side of your coaching is going to be better. We got to be a better teacher. Let's figure out how to get them to learn it quicker. If you can do that and get through to them, you're going to win more games, and they're going to like you more, and you're going to get what you want out of it, which is success, right? So that's the concept of where neuroscience has gone, and they've taught us some stuff. So I've summarized a bunch of the neuroscience research on learning over the past 10 years here in these next things. And here's the point I want to make for you. There's a lot of myths about learning that are out there, about education and how we teach, that we got to debunk so you can get to the good stuff. Back in the day, they literally put ads out that told people more doctors smoke Camels than any other to try to persuade you that that was a good thing. Like, advertisement has totally warped our brains on the truth about neuroscience. At one point, they said you only use 10% of your brain, so we could literally remove 90% and you'd still be good. And what we found is that's not true, okay? These things are not true. I'm left-brained, you're right-brained. It's not true. You use both sides of your brain. Different sides control different parts of what you do, but you need them both in order to actually be able to do anything, okay? This is my favorite one, okay? Because of hormones during puberty, young adults can't learn. That was actually published in a journal back in, I think it was 1982 at one point, all right? So what we've learned, at times we all think it's 100% true. So what we've learned is some of these things are complete myths. Like how people learn, it's changed over the past 20 years. This was a great one, okay? They had an ad from doctors, the Soda Pop Board of America, trying to say to start drinking Coca-Cola very early in pregnancy and life, because that was going to make your baby smarter. All right? That's what they sold, and people picked it up, and they actually did research behind it that sold this stuff. These are the other ones, listening to Mozart will make your baby smarter, okay? Multitasking is a good way to get work done. And then the last one, okay, teachers should teach to every student's individual learning style. They've done science to prove all of those things, and now they've done science to disprove all of that and actually say, no, this is real. You can't teach to their just one learning style. What they found is every single athlete you work with, They may prefer learning it one way, but they're using the other two ways in their brain to back it up. You can have a preferred learning style. Me, I totally got to write it down. If I write it down, I'm good, all right? But I use the other two ways, okay, of being able to reinforce it. If you only taught me one way, it's going to screw the other kids, and I'm still not going to get the full picture. So those are some of the myths that they've come up with and debunked around the neuroscience. So if they're debunking this stuff, my question is, are you guys looking at the most current stuff to make you the most effective with your athletes? Okay, just think about that. Is the stuff you learned 15 years ago, is that still good? And that's where I want to kind of pull some new information into you, because we're trying to apply a lot of this new research to our coaching. They've done research on plasticity, okay? How the brain structure changes in certain situations. Neurogenesis, how we grow new cells at any age of life to be able to grow and actually teach old dogs new tricks, okay? Emotions and learning. Emotions can enhance or shut down learning. And this is one of the key ones I'll touch on here in a minute. And then sensitive periods. Windows of opportunity exist during as the brain's growing. So they've got amazing research at Johns Hopkins, here at UCLA, many other places, that they're actually learning how we are learning and how our athletes coming up are actually looking at the world. So that's kind of my reality check. Like, have you updated on how you're teaching and your teaching styles? I want to give you a couple ideas of where you could do it. So this is that book, Brain Targeted Teaching, from Marielle Hardiman at Johns Hopkins University. She broke down how to teach kids and get them to learn the best way, which would equal more wins for everybody in this room, into 6 key areas in a classroom. Area 1 is emotional climate. If kids have a stable emotional climate, they want to come to school, they want to perform, they'll learn better. 2, physical environment. The actual physical environment can totally block your opportunity to learn. That physical environment includes parents sitting in the stands of practice within eye level, and every time you mess up, you look up and see if he saw you mess. And then like, ah, man, Dad saw me, or he didn't see me. Okay, cool. Like, that happens to us every day, and that will actually impact success for our athletes. Learning design, how you design your practices, how you design the culture and the programming you put in. Teaching, actually how you deliver the information for mastery. And that's how we use progressions. Like Gabe is great at talking about his progressions, man. Progressions help you go ahead and break it down, whole part whole, be able to break it down and put it back together. So teaching for mastery has a lot to do with progressions and how you present information and recall it. Then, teaching for application. Okay, cool, can you apply it in pressure situations? And then last is just evaluating the learning constantly. 6 key areas. She gives you great examples of how the neuroscience shows you that this is really legit with the up-and-coming athletes. But then 2, gives you examples of how teachers have done it in the classroom, okay? I want to touch on the 2 that I think as coaches, we can right now pull a couple ideas away from. The positive emotional climate and then the physical environment. Because every one of us can impact those 2 things. And like I said, Adam talked about it last night, about his core values, and I thought it spoke directly to this positive emotional environment side of things, okay? All right, and my reminder is, these 2 areas, positive emotional climate, is that connection from the coach in the middle to the athletes right here, okay? And then the physical environment is these 2 things, the performance, culture, and the actual environment. So that's why I picked these 2 areas, because I think they connect this whole idea of quality coaching pretty well. All right, positive emotional climate. Here's what they found with the neuroscience research, okay? Legitimately, the fact that your emotions will totally impact your attention span and your willingness to learn, and that's going to go ahead and impact the outcomes of what you retain. If you're not in a good space when you come to practice or go to school and everything's going in your mind, it's kind of a duh thing if you really think about it. All right, but they actually did research to back it up. If you're not in a good space mentally, it's gonna totally block your attention span and your ability to actually take in information. But think of it this way, man. Anybody here yelled at their star athlete in the middle of practice and you've seen her just go, ugh. Or she's just not into it. She's always hitting pipes, she's always hitting top corners, and all of a sudden she's missing by miles. And you're like, what's up? She's like, problems with my boyfriend. You're like, okay, just get it out of your mind. Guess what? She's not going to be able to, man. All right? So those things definitely, 100%, they've proven it impacts. And we've got the research behind it, okay? So a bunch of researchers found a bunch of information in the past 10 years about toxic stress. If you're constantly stressed, it completely impacts your ability to be able to learn. So think about it. If the days that you're trying to teach technical skill, you're putting them in extreme pressure situations too early, you're adding extra stress before they've got the information down. If you started them that day with heavy conditioning where you're yelling and you're disciplining them for some issues and then you try to teach, they're gonna be stressed. It's gonna impact their ability to retain your information. You need to think a little smarter as coaches about how you're applying certain situations if you're gonna teach them to learn, if you want them to retain it. And dude, I do that all the time. I'll be trying to teach things, somebody's not paying attention, we get them on the line, they start running, I get a little more mad, all of a sudden we start doing it again, and then I try to go back to teaching. Yeah, good luck, man. They're not, now, the whole team's pissed at that one person. That one person is like, oh crap, I got called out, and they're not listening to anything. So it's gonna be a bad practice. So they did research on toxic stress, all right? The other thing with toxic stress that they found out was this: if you're in an environment, if you're coming to practice and you don't like the coach, you don't like your team, you don't feel comfortable, it's gonna scare you from learning. It's gonna keep you from learning. You're too worried about your natural reaction to people's opinions than to actually take in the info. So as coaches, we've gotta be aware of that and make sure that we've got a culture and we've got an environment here, an emotional environment where kids are comfortable. That doesn't mean everybody gets a hug and a high five. It means you gotta be aware of those couple of just really bad things and nip them in the butt early, okay? Positive emotions. They've done the research to show that it legitimately increases their scope of attention. That if they're happy and it's a good time, they're enjoying it, that their attention span goes up, they're involved. It's another duh thing for us as coaches, because when you get that team that just gels, they wanna be there and you like them all, you don't have a problem with it. Dude, it's fun. It's fun. Remember, fun does not mean everybody gets a medal, okay? Fun as you get older, we asked a bunch of our Olympians at the training center, define fun, okay? Our top level Olympians were telling us fun is kicking ass, knowing that every single drill relates to our success, and it's making sure that every part of me as an athlete is taken care of in my workouts. That's fun. When we asked our junior athletes, we asked a couple of our 16-year-old wrestlers, what's fun? They're like, coach not yelling at us. That's literally what a kid wrote. Coach not yelling at us is fun. Playing tag at the end of practice was one of their comments. That was fun to them at 16. And it's like, oh, okay, fun is different at different ages. Okay, so when you're sitting here looking at, you increase their ability to learn, if they've got good emotions and it's fun, you gotta define fun for your age groups. Okay, if you can do that, you'll put them in a better situation to learn to get more out of them. I put the emotional tank up here for PCA. It's that 5-to-1 ratio. It's really tough to give 5 positives to any 1 negative, and that's why at times I kind of shy away from some of the PCA stuff. But this is something I think that really could help the PCA stuff. They did a lot of research on downshifting. Downshifting is legitimately when you get totally crapped on by your coach and you see your athletes go into a shell. It's when they miss that open shot and they automatically pound the ground or pound the water and go into a shell and shut down. As a coach, if you start to see this happening, you need to step in with some mental training. You need to come up with some kind of a verbal cue, a brush it off, it's okay to get them out of it. Because what they found is athletes who consistently use downshifting or experience downshifting are shutting themselves out from the reaction, from getting the next one, from actually being open to take the advice from the coach of you're not following through or you're not doing this. If they get too mental in that situation, it actually becomes a negative habit of downshifting. And now you literally go from probably being one of the best on the team to being one of the worst on the team when you start having a bad game. All right, so they found the science and the word for it, but as a coach, what we need to learn is to recognize that and snap them out of it. Also, recognize the athletes that make the others downshift. You'll notice that when you put these two in a line together, this person just shuts down, okay? Or in the locker room, when they're next to each other, this girl just shuts down. That's something where you need to ask and find out, is there something going on that's gonna keep you from being successful, okay? And if you're not great at observing those things, guess what? That's why you have assistant coaches. That's why you have leaders in your program on your teams. Have them report to you what's going on, okay? And tell people, look, I'm just trying to look out for the emotional well-being of our program, of our team, of our legacy. And everybody will try to hook you up and help you out with that, okay? So don't put too much pressure on yourself to be perfect, because I've been reading this research for the last 4 years, and with my high school lacrosse team, I coach high school lacrosse in Colorado, I mean, I still get it wrong. I still drop F-bombs, I still yell at kids in bad situations, but I'm trying to get better at it, all right? So don't feel that you gotta do it all perfectly. Back to that big circle, okay? Interpersonal communication. This is what it is, and you can use some of that neuroscience info to help you. This is what athletes are looking for nowadays. Solid verbal from their coach, good nonverbal, and a relationship. If you do those three things, that's interpersonal communication. That was one of our three core key concepts to being a great quality coach. It was interpersonal, and here's the three things you got to do to be great at it. Now this is what, as coaches, we get kind of caught up with. It's the verbal and the nonverbal, and I love the picture of Pat Summitt in the top corner. It's funny, I had a friend who actually knows Pat Summitt and asked her, showed her that picture, and she's like, what were you saying in this situation? She's like, I think I was yelling a really positive, good job. Like, Pat's like, I don't think I meant to rip anyone's head off. And they're like, Pat, you look like you're literally going to eat this child. And she's like, yeah, I really do. But is it the verbal or the nonverbal? I mean, you want to have positive and honest verbal feedback. Keep it simple, be loud and clear, be consistent. Your nonverbal, you want positive attitude, appropriate gestures. Here's Nick Saban with the palms down, calm down, calm down. You guys might know this. What's more important, your verbal or your nonverbal to your athletes, though? Nonverbal. Anybody want to guess the percentage of how nonverbal versus verbal? What's the percent of information that's more important to your athletes? Close. 35% of what you say verbally they pick up. 65% of your nonverbal cues they pick up. They pick up your facial expressions, your tone, your movement, your appearance, your eye contact. So when you're like, it's okay, they automatically know you're pissed. Like, you totally have not sold it well enough. You got to get yourself out of that Pat Summitt, eat your face kind of moment on the sidelines to keep them calm. Especially in games. Dude, games, matches, we get so pumped up as coaches. It's our time to really work with our athletes, and we want them to win. We want them to win. Adam said this, he's got a coach who warms up his athletes because they can be calm and confident in that moment, okay? They're not getting them all too pumped up or too in a negative space, right? Dude, that's great, because if he comes out at the last second, if you get your calm coach to warm the team up, make them real confident and emotionally stable, and then you come over with a game plan, they're in a position where they'll be able to listen to it, learn, and use it and apply it. If you've got the nervous coach who's just in their ear during warm-ups and like even giving them shit a little bit, which some of us can do when we get nervous, all right, they shut down. They start getting more nervous about the game. They're not going to actually hear your adjustments. So if you can start using some of these verbal and nonverbals to keep them calm, when you call a timeout and put in a play, they're in a better situation to learn. Okay? If you're all pissed off and you call and you just yell at them, they didn't hear a word of your adjustment. They just heard that you're pissed. So just think about how you're doing things when it comes to timeouts, because will your athletes hear you? All right? Will they be ready to take on that information? And again, here's just some keys to having better interpersonal communication with your athletes. Be open to conversation. Have those conversations with them. Be aware of presence and power. Wolf, we met yesterday for the very first time, man. I went home and told my wife, between you and Adam Kokori, I met some really cool dudes that made me totally intimidated. Plus, you're like twice my size. I'm 5'6", man. You kill me. All right? You've got presence and power, and I talked to you for like 2 seconds. All right? That's freaking awesome. That's a gift. At the same time, when you're with your athletes, especially the young ones coming up, know that you've got that presence and power. Okay? Because, dude, you were the nicest person in the world to me. And I was like, shit, this guy's tall. Can you imagine if I was 10? Know your presence and power as coaches. Okay? Especially as you start to get accolades and you start to have a reputation behind you, all right? It's like they know who you are. They Googled you already. Know what that is and don't let it be a disadvantage. Use it as an advantage. When I found out Wolf was cool as shit, I was like, told my wife last night, I was like, this guy's awesome. I was like, so keep that in mind. It builds your interpersonal communication and your relationships, all right? Speak to people, not at them. And we do this all the time with our athletes. We speak to the world. We don't actually speak to them. Key, if you guys are ever outside, doing training outside, things like that, you get sunglasses on, take the sunglasses off and look them in the eye, okay? Because if you can look them in the eye, they'll connect with you. You're speaking to them, not at them. If the sunglasses are on, you're totally speaking to the world. They don't really know that you're dialing in, okay? It makes a big difference in the outcomes. And the last thing is just listen to build the relationship. Adam talked about this last night. He had an athlete come up to him and be like, I don't like who you become. I really don't like playing for you. You're not the coach I really thought you were. He then said to us, dude, that hit me in the heart. Like, I'm going to have these leadership meetings again with my athletes. It definitely connected to me. And then I told that athlete, it is okay for her to tell me that stuff. I want her to tell me that. That's my checks and balances. That is listening to build that relationship. He's now got that extra athlete on the field who knows it's okay to check the emotional balance of the team and let them know, okay, what's going on. All right, so just another, and here's a great example from Wooden. A coach is someone who can give correction without causing resentment. If you read his book that I threw up there, they actually went ahead and counted comments that he made to his players. It was something like either 2,500 or 25,000 comments he made over the course of like 2 or 3 weeks. 75% of them were not positive nor negative. It was information. Wooden's style of being a positive coach was he says in the book, I believe in the positive way of coaching. Positive way of coaching is me giving correction and giving information to the athlete for them to do something with it. That's the positive way of coaching. It's not everybody gets a hug and a high five. It's not me being your best friend. Sometimes you got to smack the dog. And the other quote from Wooden is, everybody needs a pat on the back. Some of it just need it lower and harder. Okay? His concept was, I'm going to give you information and teach you how to learn and apply the adjustments. And that spoke to me as a coach, because when I apply with my kids, like, some of them you have to be a little tougher on. Some of them you need to be a little bit lighter on. But if they get used to me consistently giving them information to make the adjustment, that's positive coaching. It's a consistent environment. They know how to deal with you. They know what to expect. It also, when you flip out, it makes it more alarming. They react better to it. If you're always flipping out, they just, it's just coach being an asshole again. It's legitimately what they think. It makes it more dramatic and gets the results that you wanted. Okay? So that's a great example of how, if you read that and you just think, if I'm just more pointed with my information and more stable how I'm giving you feedback, you can consume it better, you know what to expect, and then you can apply it. All right? So that's his way of positive coaching, which I thought was awesome. This is a great example from Coach K. And he does this all the time. It's called scaffolding. They did research and they found that pretty much so when you bring your athletes and you ask them questions and give them hints to get to the answer, it actually makes them retain information. Great neuroscience of learning stuff here. So literally what Coach K will do is stand next to somebody and say, hey, what did you see there? Why did you do that? Did you see that girl in the left corner? Did you see that person in the right corner? Why did you decide to go ahead and bank it off the backboard instead of dunk it? The athlete tells them, and while they're telling them, he actually gets them to regurgitate a lot of the lessons that he was teaching, a lot of the technical, tactical information they had talked about in timeouts or in practice. Okay? So that's scaffolding versus me just telling you the answer. I'm actually getting you to be the learner. Okay? I'm getting you to actually go ahead and be able to teach. That's a great skill that every one of us could do more with our athletes. What did you see there? Why did you do that? It gets them to be involved in it, and again, you're working on your interpersonal relationships with that athlete. You can still be tough, be like, that wasn't the right decision. We talked about this, and here's what we said. Boom. But you're asking them to be a part of it versus you being the dictator. All right? Here's a last little bit of research, and I'll finish up here in probably be about 5 more minutes. So they did research on praise and academic achievement. Okay? Literally what the research showed was this. They took 2 groups of students and had them take a math test. The kids who did really good, they told them, you did good because you're smart. The kids who didn't do so well, they still told them they did well. They didn't give them the answers. They said, you did well because you had really good effort. And we saw you fight through that test and really search to find the answers. Okay? A week later, they said, we have 2 tests, a really, really, really tough one, and one that's like the one you took the other day. All the kids, it's like 90% of the kids that they told were smart, didn't want to take the hard test. They wanted to take the one that they took before. Okay? The kids who they praised for effort wanted to take the really hard test, because what they found out when they did follow-up research was all the kids who were praised for effort and specifically for trying hard and fighting through it didn't care if it was hard or was easy. They were going to go after the toughest thing because they knew that they had grit. The kids who they told were smart and didn't give a lot of feedback, they're just like, you're smart. That's why you did good. Like, well, I don't want to be found out that I'm not smart. I'm going to keep taking the same old thing, same old thing. Dude, this happens all the time in coaching. That naturally talented kid, she's so good because she's naturally talented. She's naturally tall, that's why she's good. Okay? She doesn't want to go ahead and push it and push it and push it normally. They're just naturally used to it. The kid that you praise pointed reasons, Like, you did really good in that situation because you did this, or you boxed out, or you had your elbow up. They're like, oh, I have my elbow up. So every time they shoot, they get in that elbow up. Every time they do this, they're doing what you're doing. What they found in this research was this, that we can use as coaches. You gotta give them specific information. John Wooden did this better than anybody else in that book. This is why you were so good in that situation. This is why you were bad. Here's what to correct. If you just say good job or that sucked, they don't know what that means, they downshift. Okay? That was really good. They don't know why, so they haven't figured out what to keep getting better at. Think about how you're applying that information in those environments with your praise. I put these guys up here, Andy Smith from Pacific U, Anson Dorrance up here. It's funny, we talked about Andy yesterday, and I was like, I think he's in my presentation. Here's the reason why they're up there. They use a lot of analytics. They do a lot of analytics to show their athletes why they're good, okay? What they're doing very well. It gives them that pointed reason to the success and the outcomes they're getting. It allows them to reflect on it. This is good, positive coaching. Using your praise and your achievement, organizing it so they can see what they're getting good at. Again, you don't have to be a dick and violate your interpersonal relationship with the athlete or totally downshift them and rip them a new one. If you can put it in front of them, you are shooting very bad in this situation. Let's look at the film and figure out why. Here's why. Okay? So if you can sell it to them, they can learn it. All right. I'm going to skip over this one based on time. So here's the things I want you to try. Just giving you a couple of summaries. 1, value the emotional climate of the whole team. Okay? 2, build interpersonal communication with your athletes, and that was nonverbal, verbal, and your relationship. Be very player-centric. Remember the nonverbal stuff. Your nonverbal is a big deal. Okay? The verbal stuff's important, but not as. Give a try to scaffolding. Keep an idea of how you're praising your athletes and being consistent. All this is going to impact how they learn, how they listen, and if their emotional values with you. Keep track of what works. Coach Wooden used to do a 3x5 note card for every athlete at every practice. Now, he only had like 10 kids on the roster at UCLA. That's pretty easy. When you get a team of 20, this gets tough, and that's when you need to break the athletes up over your assistant coaches. But write down what seems to be working when you're giving them feedback, okay? This is my favorite one. This is the one I've done for the past year after learning it. Again, we're talking about getting them in an environment where they want to be there, an emotional climate. I tend to be a tougher coach. I have very high demands of you, but I need to make a connection. I give every single athlete a handshake or a high five or a bro punch before and after every single practice, because I have to physically come up to you and say, yo, good practice today. I really liked your effort. Okay? Hey, you did a great job. All right? And give them something. I physically have to connect with you so they know me as a human being, not that beast who literally sits on the sideline and yells at them during games. We have to make that connection. It also reminds me of my core values. One of my core values is fun for myself. I've got to have fun. Adam Krikorian talked about connecting with his athletes as a core value. That's how Adam or any one of us can make sure we connect with our athletes every day. You'll also be able to see if this is their face, and if they need an extra discussion or an extra talk, or if you really hurt their feelings, okay? Just by the simple handshake thing. All right, cool. My last one, and I'll wrap up on this whole thing. So I wanted to talk about emotional environment, give you some ideas based on the science of where you can get better. This is the fun one. Your actual physical environment of your practices in your pool. Many of us can't control this, but I want to challenge you that you could in small ways to actually get your athletes to learn better. What they found is that some of the novelty things around the environment that you learn in impact your attention span, they impact your desire to be there, they impact your outcomes. If you leave them up for a long period of time, those sayings, the saying of the lion that, like, there's a big lion on the picture and it says, every morning when you wake up, you don't have to run faster than everybody, you just don't have to be the slowest out there, so the lion eats the other slow person. Something like that. Those cheesy things that have a whale jumping and that's supposed to be like success or something like that. If it's up for longer than 3 weeks and you see it every day for 3 weeks, they did research that shows you stop actually seeing it. You ignore it and walk by. What they suggest is every 3 weeks to change those things on the wall if you want people to actually recognize them and use them for motivation. That was amazing to me because we used to just like in here. You know, it's like, oh, I came in, I was super inspired by the wooden stuff and all these championships over here, but after 3 or 4 weeks, it probably wouldn't mean as much to me. How can I move things around so you see it differently? So this is a picture I pulled of, now it's the Comcast Center? This is where the Flyers played. I grew up outside of Philadelphia. I loved ice hockey. When we would go down there and see the Flyers play, I was so pumped up. It was so inspirational. I'd go back and I'd practice. And I'd go to my crappy rink where there was dirt everywhere. And I'd be like, this isn't like the Flyers. We got to make this like the Flyers. And when we made it like the Flyers, we seemed to have a better identity to our home court, okay, our home ice and the whole 9 yards. They did the research around why that's important. And it impacts like our quality coaching. It impacts the outside of this ring, your environment and your high performance culture. If you can get these things, it's going to allow the learning, the coaching, and your athletes to be better. All right? So my question to you is, what does your pool look like? Has your pool got the scum on the sides? All right? Is it kind of crummy looking on the outside, or is it pretty clean? Is it pretty crisp? Does it make you, and again, many of us can't control this, but we can. We can make suggestions back to the pool owners. Hey, can we at least make sure it's clean? Can we at least make sure it's safe? Can we at least maybe do this? Here was one thing I figured out, okay? I've got a great turf field at Pine Creek High School in Colorado Springs, Colorado. My team stunk at shooting. We wouldn't actually take shots. We would move the ball around and everybody was scared to take a shot. So I started observing at practice. I'm not kidding. There's 50 yards from where we shoot on cage to the actual fence. 50 yards. That's a long way. It's half a football field. What I found out is my kids weren't actually taking a lot of shots in practice when I started counting. Because if they missed it, they had to go get the ball. My kids stunk at shooting because our physical environment was not actually set up for them to want to take a lot of shots and be able to get really good at hitting the top corners. Because in boys lacrosse, you get a 6x6 goal. You got to hit corners to score goals at the higher levels. You got to pick small spots. So I'm with my high school kids. I'm like, we suck, but we won't even shoot. And I figured it out. It's because they don't have to go chase it. So in games, we took like 20 shots a game. You should be up at 50. And I finally figured out my physical environment was screwing over our actual learning. So when I actually read the research, it was like, aha. Bought backup nets, pulled them all the way up at practice. I even started shoving the nets back so they can crank away for the first 25 minutes before practice. Pre-practice, the nets are back, they're just cranking away. And then I pull them up for regular practice, but we still got the backup nets. I fixed my physical environment. It helped. We got a little bit better. This year, I'm hoping we get a lot better based off those changes, okay? But that's the thing. This is what they figured out. First thing is optimal lighting. Natural lighting, the best thing in the world. You will focus if there's natural lighting as long as the sun's not in your eyes. But when you're actually in a classroom, the lights that flicker, anything like that, lighting can screw you. Okay? Your kids won't pay attention. So when you go to do chalk talk or you go to do dry land stuff and you want to go bring them in, find a place with great natural lighting with not a lot of distractions so you can get their focus. You put them in a dungeon, you dim the lights to watch film, totally puts them to sleep. Got to figure out that win-win. Okay? Noise. When you're at practice, dude, you're a pool. It echoes. All right? That can really impact it. Try to bring your athletes in. Use a megaphone if you have to, if you're a really light speaker, or keep developing your coaching voice. Be loud. Tell your athletes, I'm loud because I need you to hear me. I'm not loud because I'm yelling at you. Many of them mistake, especially the younger levels, that he's mean because he's loud. No. I need everybody to hear me. Plus, you're in a pool. Half the time, there's water in your ears half the time anyway, so you need to be louder. Think about that stuff. The smell. I'm sure everybody in here loves the smell of chlorine. Okay? If you're putting kids in an environment, it's an unfamiliar smell, it affects them. So they did research on that. And here's the last one. This is the one I want to throw at you because we can all unpack this. Order and beauty. They literally did research that found out that if it's orderly, more beautiful, or just at least more organized, it allows kids to focus better. When there's that random thing on the corner that nobody knows what it is, or it's in your eyesight, it totally screws with you. All small things that can go a long way. Locker rooms, what's yours? Do you allow it to be disgusting? Do you allow it to be ugly? Or is it orderly? That book, Legacy, with the New Zealand All Blacks, their first saying is never be too good to sweep the sheds. They make their upperclassmen, their most senior people, sweep out their locker rooms every day. Because that is, when you come in the morning, it's a place to get ready. It's a place for performance. Never be too good to sweep the sheds. Because they know the physical environment affects their outcomes on things. Your signage, make it mean something. I hate Notre Dame. I'm sorry if you love them. I hate them. But they have the best concept in the world. Play like a champion today. That sign, it means so much to every single Notre Dame person because they hit that sign as they go out to their football field. They have that sign up in every single one of their sports fields nowadays, and they all hit that sign. It means something to them. It's got a legacy. What's your sign? What's your item? What's your legacy piece? What's your piece that when your team's going to go out to play, that they see that and they're ready to go? If it's up there every day, because that sign is not at their practice facility, it's at their game facility. So they see this on home games, okay? So when they see that as a home game, they own that field. And that's why Notre Dame has one of the best home records ever in college football. But what is your legacy piece? If you don't have one, make one. I did. I made a sign, really cool sign with the names of the seniors from the year before. And I hung that up on the wall. And it comes down at the end of the season. It goes back up beginning of the next season. My kids start to see year after year after year the legacy that's been left, and they get pumped up to go out to play. Away games. What can you take with to put on the wall of that locker room that they give you, that when they see that, they feel like they're at home? Some of our national teams, our bobsled team started doing that, taking stuff with them over to Europe and setting up their locker room or setting up their hotel with a couple of small pieces. One of the best cyclists in the world who won the Tour de France, they shipped his bed around the country during the Tour de France so he could sleep in it every day. It was very costly, but made him feel like home, made him feel at ease, at comfort, and he was pumped up to go the next day. So that's my challenge to you is your environment. How do you set up your pool? Make it safe. Make sure the lighting works. Line of sight distractions. Where are mom and dad during practice? Hopefully not there. If they are there, don't let them be in line of sight of the athletes because they are going to go ahead and look. The girls, ask the girlfriends of the goalie who's getting all pumped up after every save to sit somewhere else where if he makes a bad save, he can't look over and see that they're not, not happy with him. But think about the line of sight distractions. And then those physical reminders. How do they build your legacy? Okay? All right, so recap. I did a big brain dump on you all. I'm sorry. If I had more time, I'd go into more details, but I hope you could take a couple of those things with you that could help you. I got the science to back it up. You can have the slides. You can have everything to help you out. This is our new way of looking at quality coaching. Don't judge yourselves on wins and losses. Those will come if you do this circle successfully, all right? Brain-targeted teaching. There's six areas where the science matches up to make them better learners. The first two we talked about, emotional climate, physical climate. Stuff we could all do better. And some great books for reading, okay? John Wooden, Haven't Taught Until They Learn, Brain-Targeted Teaching. The other one was Legacy by the New Zealand All Blacks. If there's only one that you read, it should be John Wooden's. The second one should be Legacy, and the third one is the Brain-Targeted Teaching Concepts, if I had to give you an order. My email, I am open access. It doesn't matter who you are. You can shoot me a line. I actually challenge people to shoot me an email if you ever need anything. Like I told you, my job is 60 hours a week to think about this stuff. I can find you research, send it your way, and if I don't have the answer, I can call someone else and get it for you.